Welcome to This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition. I'm Kent Justice. This podcast, we focus on economic development in the River City and then throughout our region. And so joining me today, H. West Richards and Joe Testa. They are from the American Transaction Processors Coalition. And our topic is Jacksonville and the future of the fintech industry in our region. So, Wes, why don't you begin for me? Maybe explain to some folks out there, okay, what is the state of fintech? Maybe even define terms. Fintech, I think financial technology, but it's maybe broader than that.
Our organization, ATPC, we represent the payments industry, which is a piece of the fintech industry, which is part of the financial services industry, right? Fintech supports, all the bits and pieces of financial services. So, for example, fintech can sort of help banks connect into payment systems, connect directly to the customer. You have, InsurTech, which is related to fintech, making insurance products easier to use for the consumer and so forth. So fintech's a really broad term.
Right.
It's technology supporting financial services at the end of the day. That's really what it is.
So Joe, I'll put you on the spot here. So what is the state of the fintech industry, I guess, in the Jacksonville area? Is it growing? Is there opportunity here?
Well, across the country and really around the world, but led by, I think, a lot of American companies, financial services is innovating, it's growing, it's exploding. All the different opportunities there are today for consumers to connect with merchants and for financial institutions of all kinds to be a part of that value chain. Jacksonville is a hub, and I think an increasingly important hub of the industry, which is why we're here today.
What brought you to the area? What has, I guess, an impact from your coalition here of being able to interact with the folks in Northeast Florida?
Well, like Joe said, Jacksonville is a very important hub.
What makes it so? What makes it a hub of, or an important component of?
There's a large number of fintechs that are here.
Okay.
And there are some significant payment industry players here that operate on a global scale.
And I'm not sure that Joe Average knows that. And that's part of why we developed this. We've just been doing our podcast here on this topic since October. And I think part of that is, boy, there's a lot of information people would really be impressed to know about. This is certainly one of those things. Matter of fact, we talk about workforce development on our podcast. What do either of you see that is encouraging in terms of businesses concerning the workforce here in Jacksonville?
Well, a lot of times payments is one of those things, people don't really think of it as an industry. They don't think of it as a business. They think of it as just a utility. You go, you pay for something in a store or online or what have you. You don't think about the work that goes behind performing that transaction. And there are tens of thousands of people in the United States and a disproportionate number here in certain hub areas, including here in North Florida, who are responsible for making that work happen.
Yeah, and on the face of it, you mentioned the payment process. I'm thinking like point of purchase. I'm going to get my debit card, or I'm going to put it in, it's going to be read, and there's going to be a processing that happens. But it's far greater than that, I would imagine.
Yeah. It's, a lot of ones and zeros moving around the world really fast. And when you dip or swipe or tap your card, it's remarkable the steps and the various gates that transaction has to go through. And it's an ecosystem that has grown over the last 60 years that is extremely complex, but works very well.
So West Richards, a little of my research here. So 25 years career, both public and private sector, and part of that was Capitol Hill, House of Representatives. Is there a federal regulation component of this that probably plays a factor in what's happening in the industry?
Oh, sure, of course. The industry is the payments industry is highly regulated in general, and you know, in the payments industry, the players involve the banks, the network brands, and the processors. And there are rules for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sure. More rules coming probably because there's another day ending in Y coming soon.
That's right.
Definitely wanted to just talk a little bit more. One of the topics that I was just corresponding with your team about was the future of stablecoin. So maybe somebody explain to me stablecoin and why we're concerned about that.
Well, I don't know if I'll have to turn to Wes to help me with some of that subject matter, but I think I do want to pick up on one point that he just made or that you just asked him about regulation. You know, regulation is I think you made it sound a little bit like kind of a necessary evil. We actually embrace regulation because it helps establish the rules under which the industry can flourish and grow. So I just wanted to kind of make that point first.
And so the point you're making is it's going to hold us back, this regulation.
It gives
us a chance
not when
to...
it's sensible and well thought out and consistently applied. So ideally at the federal level, but it happens at the state level too, and we work hard to try to share good ideas among the states and try to promote uniformity and workability, because ultimately it's consumers and merchants who are trying to get together and who will benefit from a flourishing industry.
Does everybody in the industry kind of approach it that way, or is that
We do.
hit and miss?
We sure do.
Okay.
And on behalf of our members,
That's
we
awesome.
try to promote good, thoughtful, consistent regulation.
Yeah. All right, so which one of you wants to educate me on this stablecoin topic?
So stablecoin is associated with basically digital currency, right? But unlike crypto, it attaches value to the fiat currency. So it's attached to how the dollar, for example, operates. But it's all digital. And a lot of states are looking at stable coins and how that would impact the regulatory frameworks. Should it be deployed? The U.S. Congress is looking at it. There are members in the House, in the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, that think that that its time has come, right? Wow. But there are others who disagree with that.
Yeah.
It could be a very efficient way to move money around, but there are those that are concerned about cash going away because a lot of our population relies on cash, and not everybody's plugged into the digital economy yet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm thinking 30 years ago, working on my master's degree, I used the theory of the diffusion of innovation as part of the thesis, and it's just natural. Some people are going to embrace that new thing, and some people are going to say, and this is exactly what I'm thinking about with cryptocurrency or the stablecoin you're talking about versus cash, and this is what I know. Maybe that's a barrier, but it certainly seems like it's a challenge for the industry if you want to take those steps forward in that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So how has FedNow impacted payment transaction processing in North Florida? I'm not entirely versed in FedNow, but how has that made an impact?
Well, FedNow as it stands really seems to be focused on B2B transactions, so business-to-business transactions, and making that more efficient. It's less business to consumer. Okay, it's something that our industry is watching very carefully. The government has rolled it out. The government's getting in the payments industry a little bit, right? But it's still in the early stages. You know, some of the concerns are around, security, around the transactions, but all those kinks will be worked out.
Well, yeah, that security topic, because so many times the headline is just the negative one about something was not secured properly or abused or that sort of thing. Before I wrap up here, what's the future of contactless payments? And again, this is just something we had talked about with the team. Hey, this is a big topic for what we're leaning into today. Yeah,
well, so it's interesting. You were talking a moment ago about how it takes time for consumers, for participants in a market to want to embrace change, right? Yeah. Well, we just went through a major global event, right, in the last couple of years, the pandemic, that really kind of shocked or forced the system to really appreciate the value of contactless payment and electronic payment, which was not it was not a happy thing. It wasn't a happy reason to have to go through that.
That's for sure.
But it really did sort of jolt, I think, the marketplace to embrace and to keep a lot of the benefits. So obviously we're not hoping for another global disruption or global pandemic like that, but it goes to show that sometimes if technology gets kind of a push in some way, that it will be readily embraced.
Yeah, the adoption happens.
Yeah. Is that something that the industry has to help some of those slow adopters get more comfortable with? This is going to be good for you. Hey, you can do it. I mean, there's got to be some encouragement there, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think everybody has a stake in that. I think electronic payments are a lot more secure. They're a lot less prone to tax fraud. They're a lot less expensive than other forms of payment. So government likes those things. Consumers like it because it's easy, right? You go to the supermarket, you can pay very quickly without as much friction. You don't have to worry about forgetting your wallet, all that sort of thing. And merchants, of course, like to open up all kinds of channels to do business, right? So the value is there, but sometimes, of course, obviously it takes some kind of push to get people to want to invest and embrace change.
Well, I appreciate the connection to pandemic and what that meant, because you're right, we had to adapt in so many different ways, but this is certainly one of them as well.
Speaking of the pandemic, and I've made this point when we've been up on Capitol Hill and various state legislative bodies, there were really three industries that helped America power through the pandemic. And one was healthcare, of course. Yeah. Two was the telecommunications industry, right? They had made the investment in data centers and technology and fiber optics to make it possible for people to work from home, okay? And the third was the huge investment that our industry made in e-commerce and the infrastructure around online payments. So when the pandemic hit, March 13th, 2020, on March 14th, everyone went from doing physical payments, right, at the store to online. And it was seamless and somewhat flawless, that transition. And it helped us get through certainly the early stages of the pandemic. It was American tech, and not only did it sustain our economy, but it helped sustain the economies of people around the world.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Right? And so, American leadership and innovation played a huge role in sustaining everybody through that pandemic.
I want to end just focusing a little bit more on Jacksonville. What are the big opportunities or threats to Jacksonville's status as a leading market for payment processors?
Well, I think Jacksonville has a lot going for it already. As Wes was talking about, there's already established a little bit of a hub here, an important and growing hub. Why is that? Well, you've got certain attributes. You've got a great workforce. You've got some good physical infrastructure. You've had a good cooperative relationship with state and local government that has wanted to feed that growth. So hopefully those things will continue, and I see that they very well might and will. I hope so.
And I would add in the academic community is now looking at workforce development and fostering talent for the industry.
That's good leadership on the academic side when they're saying, okay, what does our community need? What do the businesses in our communities need? How do we need to train these students before they go out into the marketplace?
That's right.
Maybe final question. Businesses, they continue coming to Florida, they continue coming to Jacksonville. What needs to be done, in your opinion, to make the region's future sustainable?
You want to take a crack at that?
Well,
you've seen all the growth around Atlanta, so I
yeah,
feel like
I
you're
have.
kind of an expert.
Yeah, I think, well, personally, I think Jacksonville needs to double down on this industry.
How would they do that?
Well, I think one of the ways is to educate and communicate more with the folks in Tallahassee about the opportunity that exists to grow this industry here, and have a real conversation about, incentives. I think that is one certainly big thing that can be done, and continuing to encourage this back and forth between industry and the the academic folks on how to better educate the workforce and continuing education. These are the things that fuel the industry and the growth.
Yeah. Joe, final word on that?
Payments processing is a growth industry. It's a good, clean, green industry. It encourages and celebrates diversity and economic opportunity. These are all sustainable characteristics, which I think gets to the point about sustainable growth here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I knew I was going to learn some things today. I knew it was going to be educational for me. Certainly was. So H. West Richards, Joe Testa, the American Transaction Processors Coalition, thank you so much. And for each of you, thanks for watching or listening today. And we're constantly working to bring you more interviews just like this, focused on economic growth in our region. You're going to find more episodes right now, including on News4Jax Plus. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Jacksonville Business Edition.